Hey, Arlo and Frank. Grandpa coming to you from the Vatican in front of the Planet Fitness in Atlantic Beach. Just got done working out. I went to my last physical therapy. It's supposed to be my last. We'll see. And got glowing comments about my progress with the torn Achilles. I've been out running a little bit. I'm up to 45 seconds of running and 1 minute and 15 seconds of walking. I do 10 sets of them, so it's 20 minutes. And quite honestly, my goal is to be able to run 2 miles a day. I don't really need to run more than that. I don't need to run races anymore. I'll be 70 years old on August 5th of 2023. I've been running since the mid-1980s. So I'm going on 40 years. The mid-2020s, I'll hit 40 years of running. Running's been good to me. It's helped me to maintain a certain level of fitness, be able to keep surfing well into my later years. But I'm not here to talk to you about that. I'm here to read you a story. This is The Ant and the Grasshopper, and once again we're in the classic animal tales from Reader's Digest Young Families. And here is the opening picture of The Ant and the Grasshopper. Summer had just begun. Animals and insects scurried about, enjoying the summer sun. Summer's here, the best time of the year, the grasshopper sang. His joyful jumps took him from the cool shade of a bush into bright rays of the sun. Warm sun, lots of fun, he added to his song. A line of ants marched past the grasshopper, carrying small seeds and bits of food. As they walked along, some crumbs fell to the ground. Before the ants could get them, the grasshopper had eaten the crumbs. The biggest ant at the end of the line walked up to the grasshopper. "We've worked very hard to gather this food," said the ant. "You should have helped us pick up what we dropped." And if you notice in that picture, the ant and the grasshopper they're like the difference between a small dog and a grown human being. So they're not drawn proportionately in this thing, which is fine. I'm assuming that this is fiction that we're reading. "That's what's wrong with your summer song," the grasshopper sang. Then he said, "You're always working. Summertime is for play, not work." "Summertime is for planting and gathering," said the ant. "It's time for getting all the food we will need for the winter." And that sounds like a good plan to me. "Winter is so far away. I think I'd rather go and play," said the grasshopper. He was about to hop away when the ant stopped him. "Wait, my friend. What about all the food you took from us?" the ant said politely. "Oh, yes, thank you." The grasshopper pointed toward a field. "And over there is a whole field of wheat to replace your crumbs. I like cornfields better myself, but that might be too far for you to walk." And the grasshopper hopped off to the cornfield. The grasshopper leaped onto a cornstalk. A soft leaf gave him a bed. Above him, another leaf gave him shade. And within reach, smaller, tender leaves gave him food. There was even an ear of fresh corn nearby. "Those ants can gather and work and store. I'll just snooze right here and snore." Well, they're gathering and working and storing. I hope I didn't say and snoring. "Those ants can gather and work and store. I'll just snooze right here and snore." He fell fast asleep. Meanwhile, the ant lined the tunnels of his home with seeds and other foods. When the snow is on the ground, we will be nice and warm in our nest. We will have plenty of food to eat and plenty of time to play, thought the ant. And this is another one. Here's a picture of the grasshopper, like just chilling in the cornfield. But this is another one of those stories that I don't think your grandmother would appreciate. She hates ants as much as she hates mice. All that summer, the grasshopper watched the ants. When he saw them going to a picnic for crumbs, he hopped along to eat his fill. While they carried food back to their nest, he slept in his cornstalk bed. So he's eating as much as they are. He's even eating more. And he's kind of a smart guy because he's saying, okay, the ants know how to find food, so I'm going to just follow them, and then I'm going to eat a bunch of stuff that they find. Now, the ants are still getting enough to take back with them, but what the grasshopper's not doing is he's not storing up for winter. Then one day, the grasshopper heard a loud noise. The farmer was coming to harvest the corn. The grasshopper jumped off his leafy bed and ran into the grass. Down came the leaves and the corn the grasshopper had feasted on all summer. Down came the leaves that had sheltered him. Close call, all in all, sang the grasshopper. Did you see that? He asked the ant as the line of ants marched past. I just lost my cozy bed and all my precious food. The ant stopped. The days are getting shorter, my friend, but there is still time for you to store food and find a winter shelter. The grasshopper thought about it for a second, but said, not today, I've got to play. He sang and hopped his way through the grass. When he found a toadstool, he said, this will put a roof over my head, so I'll just eat later instead, he added to make a rhyme. And he is sort of like the Cassius Clay of grasshoppers. He stings like a butterfly and floats like a bee, or whatever he did. But Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali used to rhyme things all the time. He was a boxer. Great boxer, maybe the greatest boxer ever. The grasshopper had just fallen asleep when he heard a plop. The next thing he knew, his toadstool was falling over. Oh, I'm sorry, chattered a squirrel above him. My paws were so full of nuts that I dropped some. You can have them if you like. The grasshopper hopped away. I don't like nuts. No ifs and ands or buts. He is sort of Muhammad Ali-ish. And here's the squirrel and the grasshopper. The nutty squirrel and the I don't like nuts grasshopper with no more toadstool. Although the fields, all throughout the fields and forests, he saw squirrels gathering nuts. They chattered to one another. I found more. Have you heard? This winter is going to be very snowy, and I think I have enough, but I want to be sure, so they must have the Weather Channel, these squirrels. It's going to be a long winter. All this work was making it very hard to play and to sleep. In a corner of the hayfield, the grasshopper found a small, sunny rock. He was just settling down when the ants began marching by him again. You again, he said to the ant. I thought by now you'd have enough. You can't eat all that stuff. The ant smiled, but he was too busy to stop and talk with the grasshopper. My friend, it's always better to have a little extra than not enough, he called over his shoulder, and that's true in a lot of parts of life. The grasshopper frowned. The sun had moved and the rock was cold. At the other end of the field, the farmer was cutting hay. Doesn't anybody here know when to play? He asked. He hopped off to the apple orchard. Most of the leaves were gone from the tree, but the grasshopper found a few small apples on the ground. He munched on them until he was full. Then he settled in for a nap near the root of the tree. The grasshopper shivered. He looked around for a sunny spot, but the sun was already gone from the sky. Someone needs to tell the sun that its working day is not done, he sang unhappily. So for the first time, he's singing an unhappy song. And there he is, being unhappy. So he was happy in the sun with free food, but now everybody's gathering things and putting them away, including the farmer. So even human beings in this story are smarter than this grasshopper. The sun was one thing the grasshopper didn't mind seeing hard at work, but with each passing day, the sun that warmed him all summer long seemed to be working less and less. The ground seemed colder, too. One day when the grasshopper tried to nibble an apple, he found that it was frozen. "I don't like my apple in ice," said the grasshopper. He was so chilly that it was hard to think of a second line to his rhyme. Ice, nice, rice, mice. The grasshopper tried to think of something nice. A warm place with lots of rice, he sang in a shivery voice. He didn't especially like rice, but he was getting hungry. Then he thought, maybe I'll visit my friends, the mice. The grasshopper crept into the home of the field mouse family. It was warm inside. There was no sign of rice, but the grasshopper was sure they would have something else nice. "Thank you for visiting, Mr. Grasshopper," said Mother Mouse. "I would invite you to stay, but all of my sisters and brothers are moving in for the winter. Isn't that nice? Oh, here they are now." A crowd of mice rushed into the nest. It was nice to see them hugging each other. No, it wasn't. They're mice. But the grasshopper wanted the kind of nice that meant he had a place to live and something to eat. The grasshopper hopped back to the orchard. The ground was so cold that it hurt his tiny feet. And here's the relative mice running into the mother mouse's hole. "Where are those ants now that I need them?" sang the grasshopper. And if you remember, in the very beginning of this thing, the grasshopper was eating the stuff that the ants had gathered. See, now I'm thinking about mice again. He was stealing stuff from them and eating. And they didn't get him locked up or anything. Didn't have the grasshopper police go after him. But now he's going to go back. Let's see how they act when they see him, how they react to him, I should say. Suddenly, snow began to fall. It covered the grasshopper. With a jump, he fluttered his wings. He had to get inside or he would freeze. Hopping as fast as he could, the grasshopper raced to the ants' home. "Anybody home?" he called as he stepped into the tunnels. "Why aren't you out playing in the snow?" asked a wise ant. The grasshopper wanted to say that he had just come by for a visit, but he could feel the cold wind on his back. Sadly, the grasshopper sang, "I should have listened to what you said. Now I'm cold and scared and unfed." So even this sad grasshopper is rhyming things. It wasn't his best song, but he hoped the ant would understand and maybe help him. The ant did understand, but he wanted to be sure that the grasshopper understood too. We got our food for the winter by working hard. If you stay with us this winter, you'll have to work hard too. The grasshopper gulped. What if it was a long winter like the one squirrel said? But then he remembered the ice and the snow. Your job here will be to sing for us every day. Then the ant laughed, because winter is our time to play. All that winter, the grasshopper sang for the ant and his family. And the next summer, The grasshopper sang a song as he helped to gather food. Summer work is slow and steady, but when winter comes, I'll be ready. And here he is, doing his Enrico Caruso impersonation at the ant house. Peace out, guys.